Hello, yes, I am live today. Hi, everybody. You know who I am, and I'm about to start my watch party. What I normally do. Let's see. They say I am live. Hello, yes. Oh, got to turn down that so I don't get no echo. And let's see. Try it again. Share. Wow. Doesn't want me to share my live. Wow. Okay. Share. Watch party. And we're on. Hey, everybody. So, I am Yvette McQueen, MD, a global physician on a mission to educate about health, travel wellness, and disease prevention. So, I am so blessed today to have Dr. Merrian Brooks. She is coming to us all the way from Botswana, Africa. So, she is actually 6 hours ahead of us. It's 6 p.m. there. And if we have Wi-Fi issues, you got to remember sometimes everything is not always stable. Even here, there's supposed to be storms here where I'm at. So sometimes Wi-Fi goes. So play with us, but we're going to be here. So hello, Dr. Merrian.
Hi, how are you guys?
So tell us who you are, where you come from. I actually had a bio here. Let me see. She told me she actually sent me a bio. Let's see. Dr. Brooks is a pediatric adolescent medicine specialist. She is profoundly interested in improving the health and well-being in adolescents in low and income countries and underserved American youth. Her research interests include strength building in vulnerable youth to influence risk behaviors such as risky sex and substance use, as well as community-based participatory research. She is currently running a research project. She's going to tell us about that in Botswana. So, hey,
Hey.
that's who she is. So, where are you originally from in the United States?
So I am a military kid, so I always am not sure how to answer that question. But I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia, on the Naval Hospital, and then we moved all around when I was growing up, mostly in the U.S., but different parts of the U.S. So we lived with my grandparents in Alabama for a little while, and then we lived in California, and then we lived in Guam, and then we lived in Maryland. So now my parents are in Maryland. And so that's always the home base whenever we get back to the States, and I'm not working. And I work in Philadelphia.
Okay.
When I'm in
Wow.
the States.
Yeah. Portsmouth. Actually, yeah, I'm in Newport News right now, so I know the area. So great. And Guam. Oh, we'll have to talk about that aside thing because I want to know
Yeah.
more information about Guam. So great. So evidently, you had your passion from travel from a youth because you were Navy family moving around. So, but when did you actually have your first passport?
So I'm pretty sure I got it right before I went to study abroad. So I studied abroad when I was 20 as a college student. And I studied abroad just because like the guy I had a crush on was studying abroad. So I was like, I should study abroad too. Like that's what we do, I guess. And so I actually went to Ghana, West Africa, and I didn't really know that much about it, except that they spoke English, and that, this is where like enslaved people had come from. It's like one of the places. So I just was like, let me go. And that 6 months that I was there was like super, super transformative. I actually only left the country during that 6 months once. I went to Togo with a group of friends, but I did travel extensively around Guam or Ghana, and that time traveling in Ghana was really amazing. And most of it I did solo because I was 20 and I had like no concept of anything bad happening to me. I just knew that like people got on public transport and went places. So I would hop on a trotro and go to Cape Coast or go to Kumasi or go to way up north to the border. And that was really, I mean, it was deeply profound in terms of my identity. It really affected me, but it also made me realize that one country is not one thing. And so I'm also really grateful for that opportunity, because by traveling all over the country of Ghana, I got to see different cultures, different groups, different languages, different religions. And, you know, in Ghana, everybody's Ghanaian, but then they also have different ethnic groups. And, you know, there can be stark differences between them, even as all Black people. And I also remember like being really, when I met somebody who was like born, I think he was born a Buddhist. He was a Black person, and I remember being 20 and thinking like, I've never met somebody who was Black and born a Buddhist. And it just like the combination of all of those experiences made me want more of those experiences in travel. And that's part of the reason that I travel slowly when I do travel, because I want to understand some of those nuances in the place. But it's also where I decided I wanted to be a physician, because when I was in Ghana during that time, I volunteered at a hospital doing everything from like checking people in to sweeping the floors.
So you were at college when that happened?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were like, we need bodies to like do stuff. So I was like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't know how to do any medical stuff, but I can write a name in a book, you know, and I can sweep up the floors and I can get some supplies for you. And so essentially I did like anything that anybody needed that wasn't a professional skill. I learned a lot. The nurses kind of took me under their wing to teach me kind of what they were doing, and the doctors allowed me to shadow them. And that was also really impactful. And when I came back, I wanted to be a physician after that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a couple of my previous physicians said they also did study abroad. So that is, I'm telling all the college students that is experience. Wherever you go, it will broaden your horizon, it'll broaden your worldview, to see how people live differently. And that's great. Traveling slow, that's getting the cultural experience of the destination you in versus just say, oh, I'm gonna do this, to actually experience living in the country. That's wonderful. So you came back, decided you want to be a doctor, went through our whole, you know, med school residency thing that we do. And then you start practicing in Philadelphia. Is that correct?
So I after so technically my first real job is Philadelphia, actually, now that I think about it. But I did pediatric residency in Camden, New Jersey, and then I did an adolescent medicine fellowship in Pittsburgh, and then I did a global health fellowship. And the global health fellowship is pretty much 95% in country. And so it was a pediatric global health fellowship with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And so basically I was in Philadelphia for like a month and a half. And then I flew over to Botswana, and have been here mostly ever since. And so that global health fellowship ended last year. And so now I'm an instructor at CHOP and University of Penn, in pediatric, in global health, and also adolescent medicine.
But living in Botswana.
Living in Botswana most of the time. So my position is a 75% research position. So after I transitioned from the Global Health Fellowship, it's a really great fellowship. As an aside, it's the David Pincus Global Health Fellowship. And it's great because they let you kind of do what you're passionate about. And so for that 2 years that I was a fellow, I was able to focus on Botswana and just do whatever activities that were scholarly that I was passionate about. And they really supported that. And so then after that fellowship ended, then I had already started a research project. And so I'm here working mostly 75% research on a research project here. So the 75% is the time that I'm on research. most of it I spend in Botswana, because this is where all the research is happening. And I'm a junior person, so it's important for me to be here to kind of learn all the research stuff, the techniques and how things are going and management and things like that. So I'm in Botswana for most of the year. And then for 25% of the time, I go back to Philadelphia to work as a adolescent medicine hospitalist, essentially. And I also do some work in one of our outlying facilities, seeing patients that are admitted to one of our facilities. So it's a hybrid life for the most part, but predominantly in Botswana.
Now, how different is working or seeing patients in Botswana than the United States?
So I have seen patients in Botswana in a couple of ways. So during the David Pincus Fellowship, I saw patients as a hospitalist, pediatric hospitalist. So I saw patients inpatient. And then I would do adolescent medicine consults inpatient. And now I do pretty much exclusively outpatient adolescent clinics, like a couple times a month. And so most of it is, there are nuances, but there thankfully are a lot of similarities, because I didn't want to come here and not know how to do anything, because I was trained in the US and like everybody gets malaria and everybody gets this and everybody gets that. And I don't know anything about malaria because I've never treated a malaria patient. But thankfully, pediatrics, I've done pediatrics now in a couple of places. So I've done pediatrics in Jamaica for a short time, and I have done pediatrics here and have been exposed to pediatrics in South Africa as well. And essentially, like, we all see similar things. And so that's really a relief, because I felt like I had the skills I needed to work inpatient. You know, an inpatient in pediatrics here is the same as the US. The issue is more about supplies and the way that you're viewed. So here, a pediatrician is a specialist, and it's an environment where generalists are still quite common and very much a part of the health system. So you would do 1 year of internship and then go off and be like a medical officer. And so a lot of the medical care is done by medical officers. So if you've done a residency, you're a specialist and you don't see run-of-the-mill cases. So you wouldn't see a kid just for a weight check or for vaccines. You would have somebody else do that. And then when they're sick or they have a problem or if they have a chronic disease, that's when you see them. And so the pediatricians here are trained, very highly trained, to take care of almost any inpatient problem and any specialty outpatient problem for pediatrics. So that was a big change in terms of the patient population. You really don't see like a well visit unless you're in private practice and you want to, but for the most part, pediatricians are used for the most acute kind of cases. And so that was one thing that was intimidating when I first got here. I felt like I was behind some of my colleagues. And I think that's one of the misconceptions. People think like, oh, you're in Botswana, like I'm sure you like taught them, you know, how to be a doctor. But no, in reality, like they're super highly trained and they know how to take care of really complicated patients. And so I had to like get up to speed when all the patients we were seeing were complicated.
Wow.
And so they taught me a ton about how to take care of really sick patients. And that has been really, that was a difficulty in the beginning, but it's something that thankfully they kind of several of them took me under their wing and were able to help me. The issue that I think another reason why they're so good is that they also like don't have all the things, right? So we have CT scanners, we have an MRI machine, and we have X-rays and some blood work, and we have ultrasounds and things like that. But sometimes, like it's going to take you forever to get an MRI, or you have to read your own CT, or have to go and watch the ultrasonographer. You have to go and watch the ultrasonographer do their ultrasound so that you can tell them what you're looking for, so that they look for it, and so that you can help them look for the things that you're looking for too. And sometimes, you know, blood work gets lost, or it takes 2 days to get a bilirubin back, or whatever. And so because of those kind of system things that exist in the public system. So I work in the public system. There's also a private system, which is more efficient, but even sometimes has, you know, gaps. And so again, another reason why I think the doctors here are so good is because they have to sometimes work without all of the information that we would get from these lab work, from labs and from imaging and stuff like that right away. And then when they get it, they can, you know, alter their thinking, but they have to be able to make a decision without much of anything that's actually truly stat.
Extra.
Yeah.
So they use all that clinical judgment.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're just amazing. Like the docs here are so great. I feel like I've been able to become a better doctor. And in my adolescent clinic, it is a joy because I love teenagers. Like they're my favorite. And these teenagers are not that different from my teenagers in Philadelphia. There's, you know, some language things and cultural things, but like they still are like stunting for the gram, you know, and they're still like dealing with boyfriend issues and girlfriend issues, and, you know, dealing with all the usual teen angst things. Their mom doesn't give them enough independence, what, like all of that stuff is so refreshingly
it's
similar.
Universal.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
So are you in the capital of Botswana?
Yeah, so Gaborone, it's spelled with a Gaborone. So it's pronounced Gaborone because the G is like a H. And in the airport, they always say, "Oh, you're going to Gaborone." But yes, it's Gaborone. That's the capital, and that's where I am. And my adolescent clinic is actually just outside of the capital. It's about a 1 hour drive from the capital in Molopolole.
Okay, great. So now in my advertisement, I had this picture of you, and you said it was from a wedding. Tell me about that.
So when I was moving here, and I think it's just like in general about traveling, I was a little nervous because I wasn't sure like if I'd make friends and if people would understand my jokes and stuff like that. But thankfully, I was literally just like, I'm super extroverted. So I was just like, hey, you want to be my friend? Hey, you want to hang out? And one of my best friends, who's like my sister, is from here. And so she connected me with a bunch of different people. And so one of our friends recently got married, because you usually have two weddings here. You'll have like a traditional wedding that's pretty much like run by your family members, and then you'll have like a white wedding. So she had her traditional wedding last December, because that's summer here, and so it's a big wedding month. So she had her wedding in December, and it was so great because when you're married, you go to this morning thing that's like literally at the crack of dawn. When the sun comes up, you have to be there, and all the women sit around the woman that's getting married and give her advice, and then the groom's women come in and also like do some ceremonious things to say like we heard that our son wants your daughter, and they give gifts and things like that. And that morning ceremony is like it's so great. Like I don't understand half of what's going on because it's in Botswana, but it's such a nice vibe, like to be surrounded by women and to get the excitement from both sides of the family about the occasion. And then after that ceremony, then there's a lot of negotiations that happen behind the scenes, and then everybody accepts the gifts, and then you have like a party. So the party part is where that photo was from, because when you're, depending on the side you're from, she'll give you a pattern to have a dress made. So that dress, the pattern, the material that the dress was made out of, she told us to get, so that we would all be uniform when we walk to different places or are represented in different parts of the ceremonies.
That sounds
So
wonderful.
it was a super, super fun day, and it went on for way more hours than I could tolerate, but I was there for,
Wow. That's
for
like
about
all the elder women getting around the young woman and giving her advice, like they said in Timothy, the wise woman to pass it down to the younger one. Sorry about the planes. I'll tell you where I'm at. So, okay, I'm near Air Force Base. So,
nice.
That's great. So, how has the pandemic affected you in Botswana?
So, we are currently on a second lockdown. So, I'm like, do I tell you the whole story? So, I had a baby on March 11th, and I will never forget that March 11th was Pandemic Day. So, it's the day that COVID-19 or SARS-2 was deemed a pandemic.
Right.
And my parents, I delivered my baby in South Africa, and my parents were here, you know, because they were like going to help out. And then the State Department pulled everybody back, so they had to rush off about a week after she was born. And then we are residents of Botswana, but we're not residents of South Africa. And so borders started closing, and so I didn't have a passport for my baby. So I had to and I was waiting for the birth certificate. And in order to get a passport for your baby, you can't just get like an expedited passport. You actually have to certify the birth, so it doesn't look like you're stealing somebody's kid. So you have to prove that it's your kid. So we had to do this whole, it was like a nightmare getting her passport. And then the day that we left South Africa, the border closed for anyone that wasn't a citizen of Botswana or a resident. So we had to rush back. And then when we between the time we left South Africa, because we drove, between the time we left South Africa and the time we arrived at the border in Botswana, like 7 hours passed, because if you've ever traveled with a newborn, it's a nightmare. So it's supposed to take 4 hours by car from Johannesburg to Gaborone, but it took 7. By the time we got there, they were quarantining everyone. Like every single person that was coming in from then on out had to go to a 14-day quarantine. And at the time, it was the first day, so they didn't have all the details in order, but everybody was supposed to go to this teaching hospital, which is an open ward. So I was freaking out because I was like, I have a 12-day-old, and you want us to all quarantine in this open ward for 14 days. I was just like, oh my goodness. But luckily, it was actually no issue. Like we got to the border. They said, oh, well, the borders are closed. We showed them our resident permits. They said, okay, well, you can come in. But because you have a situation, that's what they call my baby. They were like, because you have a situation, you can just quarantine at home because it's not safe for your small baby to be around a bunch of other people. And I didn't have to argue with them. I didn't have to explain anything. They just literally looked at her and said, go home, please comply. Like, don't try to nix the system. And so then it was fine. And one of the things about Botswana is there's a very specific culture around newborns. So your baby is not supposed to be seen by anyone for 3 months at least. And yeah, so there's a whole term for it, botsetsi, and you're supposed to be like the mom and the baby and her mom are supposed to be away, healing and having the baby grow. And then after the botsetsi period, then other people can meet the baby. And it's really just to protect the baby from infections and things like that. And it's a very old tradition. And because the tradition is so well known, there was no question. Like, of course we have to protect your baby. You know, like, you know, nobody like gave it a second thought, which I thought was really
do that around here. I see some 1 week or 2 weeks old in the store, and I go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly. So that was really great, because otherwise they could have been mean about it and said, "Oh, you must come and quarantine with everybody." But they were really, really great. So that's one. So then we were on lockdown number one, and lockdown number one lasted 6 weeks or something like that. And then we had no cases. The only case, no cases inside of Botswana. The only cases we had were every truck driver bringing materials into the country from South Africa was getting tested. So any positive tests were from truck drivers that had been tested.
Mm.
So there was one case where a truck driver like went to the bank and went to the grocery store, and then his test result came back positive. And so after him, they became even more strict with the truck drivers and were like, we're going to escort you to your place, you're going to drop your stuff off, and then we're going to send you back to the border. So they're very serious about it here. Contact tracing is a big deal. And so there were no internal cases at all. And so then they stopped the lockdown. So then most things opened again, but then everyone had, like, masks were mandated. You had to sanitize before you went into any store, any building, into your workplace, and they registered. There's an app that you can scan a little QR code. So everywhere you go, you just scan the code so they know where you are. And if you don't have the phone, you just sign in with your contact details. So everywhere you've been in a day is recorded somewhere. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty good system, because like if you're doing contact tracing, like you know who you might need to identify and go into quarantine. So a few weeks back, maybe like a little over a month ago, there was 8 cases in one day that turned out to be false positives or something like that. And then this past week we had like over 20 cases because a truck driver who was supposed to quarantine didn't quarantine and got COVID, got flu symptoms, and has been exposed to a bunch of people. Then there was some school kids who had tested positive. They were fine, but they tested positive. And after they did the contact tracing, they realized that there were too many contacts and too many gaps to be clear on who should singularly quarantine. So they just said, let's just quarantine the whole city. So our whole city, Gaborone, Greater Gaborone, so like the surrounding areas, is on lockdown for 2 weeks. And so hopefully it'll be lifted in 2 weeks. But for now, it's going to be at least 2 weeks. And honestly, like, it's hard because it's really hard on businesses, and there's a decent amount of poverty that we also have to be juggling. And, like, business owners and certain industries have been hit really hard. There's no flights in or out of the country. The borders are still closed. But in this situation, I think it was the right thing to do, because we did such a good job. We were able to sort of have normal life for a little while, but we also know that, like, COVID hasn't changed. Like, we still don't have a vaccine, so we have to be ready. And in the address that they gave to the nation last night, announcing that we were going to go back on lockdown, they said, remember back in March when we talked about this, we said that it's possible that we could go back under lockdown. And I thought that was really wise for them to say, and wise for them to remind people, like, this isn't over, and we can't handle like a super surge. So we're doing what we can to balance all of the things. And I feel grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great system. Yeah, because I'm sure your healthcare system couldn't take the overrun of it. So you said you have dual citizenship?
No, not dual citizenship. I'm a dual resident. So I am a resident here in Botswana, and I'm a citizen of the U.S. So when you come here, so when you come here with a organization or whatever, then you're a resident of the country. So the rules for you are different. So technically, like, my employer has, like, there's a relationship with the government, so we don't pay taxes to them directly. But this would technically be my tax home. This is, where my home address is. And so they think of me as a semi-permanent resident. So I have some rights that visitors on a visitor visa wouldn't have.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. We're coming down to the end of our time. So give me three things that you would tell people about traveling or living outside the United States.
Number one is Africa is worth traveling to, and it's worth traveling to many, 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 many times. There's 54 countries in Africa. Each country has its own diversity. The continent has its own diversity. The regions have their own diversity. Like, travel to Africa in multiple ways, so that you can see that the beauty, the variety, the heterogeneity of the continent, because it has a lot to offer. So I would highly recommend that. The other thing is, like I mentioned before, travel slow. You can travel fast, it's cool. But traveling slow gives you something. So if you could travel slow from time to time, and really try your best to meet people along the way, it will enrich your life, and it will challenge you in a lot of good ways that will promote growth. And then the last thing I'll say, which is maybe antithetical to well, not really to traveling slow, but do the things. Like, I think some people are like too cool to like go to the Louvre, you know what I mean? Or like go to the Eiffel Tower, or like, oh, I'm a traveler, you know, I don't do things that are on the beaten path. But like, just like, if you like architecture, go to the Eiffel Tower. Like, if you like landscapes, go to Table Mountain, you know what I mean? If you like museums, you know, go to the art museums in Senegal. Like, just go to them, because they're famous for a reason, and they're popular for a reason. Like, they're beautiful, they're well thought out, they're historic. Like it's okay to be one of a 100,000 people who have pictures in front of this place, because the experience also it might give you something as well. So it's totally cool to do that.
Yes, I agree. It's okay. I take a pictures. Sometimes I go to multiple places. I'll do the tourist path and I'll do the non-tourist path, and then I'll go back and mix it up. And because a friend just gave me a challenge of 10 days of pictures, and I was like, yeah, I have it in front of the London Bridge and the Eiffel Tower and other things, because I still like those places. So that's good. So with people, how long are you still left in Botswana? How long are you still there with your research?
So at least 2 years. I just got a grant to do a lay counselor-based mental health project with teenagers, and I'm trying to get a little bit more funds to expand the program, because the teens here are beautiful and wonderful, and they have a lot of potential to help each other. And so that's the project I'm working on, helping them to help each other, and helping promote adolescent wellness. And so ideally, I'll be able to be here for longer, but I'm here for at least another 1 to 2 years.
Okay, great. So when the borders lift, I'm coming to visit you.
Great.
Because that
we have an extra
countries I have not hit. I've hit 10 already, so I have 44 more to go.
Yeah.
So great. Yes, wonderful. So if people want to follow your journey, see things that you're doing, where can they reach you?
So I have a Facebook page, Dr. Merrian Brooks. It's /BrooksDO on Facebook. That's the handle, I guess, is what is the term. But I haven't updated in a while, but I plan to, as we're on lockdown, I have a little bit more time to give you guys some updates on what we're doing, and to show like the beauty that is the people here, and the teens here specifically. So that's the area.
Great. great. I'm so glad you could join us and share your story with us about physicians around the world, learning about Botswana. I learned some interesting things, and I'm definitely, when those borders come up, yeah, 2021, I think I'm going to have to put that on the list.
For
Probably
sure,
going to
for
be late
sure.
2021. Like you said, your seasons are opposite. So I'll probably get there in your fall or springtime. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me. And this is a super
You're
cool idea to be sharing this with people, particularly because I feel like there's not a lot of information about Black doctors and being out here. Just as a random aside, I feel like there's a lot of stories about white doctors being like all over. And I think it's important for us to show that like Black doctors are out here. We're expats. We're working in underserved areas in the world, and in all kinds of environments, and that like we're here too. So thanks for this.
You're welcome. Yay! So thank you, everybody. Next week, I haven't put the August schedule up yet. I'm still working on it, but I know next week I will be discussing about some of my travels and some of my medical missions. And then the following weeks, we'll bring back other physicians that have done work outside the United States or living outside the United States, or just have some extraordinary travel that they want to share with you. So once again, I am Yvette McQueen, MD, a global physician on a mission to educate about health, travel wellness, and disease prevention. So emergency medicine, travel doctor, I help travelers stay healthy and safe. With my consults, with my tips. So keep following me on all social media at Yvette McQueen MD. And, I have that book out, Travelpedia, and just stay tuned for a new one that's coming out. So YvetteMcQueenMD.com and all social medias. Everyone enjoy themselves. Stay safe. Ciao for now.